My mama always told me, life is like a movie podcast. You never know what you're gonna get. That's right, we are watching the 1994 classic Forrest Gump, starring Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump. Does the movie hold up 30 years later? I may not be a smart man, but I do know that to find out, you should listen to this episode of Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. Welcome to another episode of Blind Spots and Second Thoughts. I'm Dan.
I'm Heather.
And Heather, I am just flabbergasted that you have not seen this movie, because in this episode, we are talking about 1994's Forrest Gump. Academy Award winner for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay.
Adapted?
It's adapted from a book.
I did not know that.
Best Visual Effects.
Okay.
Best Editing.
Okay, I'm bored now. Too many Oscars.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump.
You have not seen this movie.
I have not seen it from beginning to end all at once. I have seen bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
But I have not seen the whole movie.
Is there a reason why you have not seen the whole movie?
No.
Okay, so you have seen bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Regular listeners of the podcast might know at this point that doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't.
What do you know and or remember about this movie?
I will tell you that I'm a little nervous to describe what I think I know about this movie, because I too am flabbergasted that I have never seen it. And I feel like I know things, but I'm nervous that I'm going to say them and then it's going to be like, wrong.
Okay.
Wrong.
I feel like maybe you're not familiar with the concept of this podcast.
Oh. No, I know. But this movie is a perfect example of why I get nervous about the point of this podcast. Tom Hanks is in it.
Uh-huh.
Tom Hanks is Forrest Gump.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that.
All right.
I mean, who doesn't know that?
You know what? I don't know, but
people in remote villages know that.
Yeah, well, there are things that you haven't known about movies, so.
That's true, I suppose. But I do know that Tom Hanks is Forrest Gump.
Okay. What else do you know?
I know Gary Sinise is in it.
Okay.
For sure.
All right.
I believe Robin Wright is in it.
There you go. That's good.
Okay. I think that's it. I think those are the only people that I know.
Can you
that
name the characters that Gary Sinise and Robin Wright play?
Robin Wright is Jenny.
Uh-huh.
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
I don't know who Gary Sinise plays.
Okay.
But he's missing a limb of some sort.
I guess we'll have to find out. So no one else in the cast?
No.
Rounding out the cast, we have Michelletti Williamson, who you and I have recently seen on Justified as Elston Limehouse.
Right. Is he Bubba Gump?
He might be Bubba Gump if Bubba Gump were a character.
Is he not? That's a thing. I know that.
His character's name is Bubba, but it is not Bubba Gump.
Okay.
And Sally...
Oh, well, yeah, because Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I mean, they could be brothers.
Sure.
And the cast is rounded out by Sally Field.
Oh, she's his mom.
Okay, so you do remember that.
Yeah, now that you say that, yes.
Quotes from this movie famously permeated pop culture for decades. Do you remember any famous quotes from the movie?
Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
That's one.
That's all.
That's all?
If you say the others, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, but right now that's the only one that comes to mind.
Okay. So what do you think happens in this movie?
I think it's just about his life and things that happened to him, Forrest Gump.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, that is most movies.
I know, but he's an unusual fellow, I think. And we just sort of follow him through various circumstances. I mean, yeah, as I'm saying it, I'm like, that is a vague way of describing any movie, but I really don't know. He goes to war base expression.
Do you know which war he
Vietnam?
goes to? Okay.
I think. And then at the end of the movie, he runs across the United States.
He runs across the United States.
He walks across and he shows up in pictures from history.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, I sound like an idiot. I think there's at least a kernel of accuracy to the things I'm saying, but I'm so unsure about them that I sound ridiculous.
The way you described this movie sounds like you just woke up from a dream and you're trying to... I think he went to war. Maybe it was Vietnam. And then he walked across the country. I don't know. I mentioned earlier that the movie won Best Visual Effects, but it is very famously a character drama. What do you think the Visual Effects Award was for?
The war.
The war?
I don't know. When he shows up in the pictures from history.
In the pictures? I mean, I feel like just photoshopping Tom
in 1993?
Hanks. Yeah, Photoshop wasn't that complex.
Well, then I have no idea. I hate everything about this right now.
Released in 1994, Forrest Gump was a cultural juggernaut, grossing $678 million on a $55 million budget. Despite that haul, though, it was only the number 2 movie in 1994, trailing behind a little movie called The Lion King. Third place that year, of course, was True Lies, which we either have done or will do for the podcast. Spoiler, we don't necessarily record these in release order. Forrest Gump was directed by Robert Zemeckis, who had previously directed the Back to the Future trilogy, Death Becomes Her, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The movie is considered a controversial Oscar win, beating out both The Shawshank Redemption and Pulp Fiction that year. So 1994, good year for movies.
I love Shawshank Redemption.
I did see this movie in theaters and have seen it numerous times since then. In fact, it's a movie I'd seen so often that I've taken a break from it and probably haven't watched it in a decade or so. So I am curious if I'll be surprised by anything or if it'll all still be very, very familiar to me.
You saw it in theaters?
Yes.
So you were a kid?
I was a teenager.
But with 13?
Yeah.
This was a draw for a 13-year-old?
This was the second biggest movie of 1994.
I know, but
this is a draw for everybody.
I mean, not me. I was 8.
Well, yeah, okay. Do you have any other thoughts or guesses before we watch the movie?
My thoughts are that I am sad that I am this clueless about the world.
It's Forrest Gump.
I know. I'm self-conscious, okay?
Is anything else coming back to you before we get to it? Anything else at all? Because I will tell you, you've been actually pretty accurate so far.
Oh, thank you.
Just a little.
I need the validation.
Just a little of the pressure off.
Thank you. But no, I don't remember anything else.
Okay. All right. Well, do you think that you will like Forrest Gump?
I don't know. I like everything pretty much. So yeah, probably. But I do wonder if my expectations will be too high because I do know that it is a beloved classic. And whenever that's the case, there's a part of me that's like, what if I don't get it? What if I don't get the appeal? But at the same time, I do end up enjoying most things that we watch. So yeah, I'd err on the side of I will.
All right. Well, I guess there's only one way to find out.
Let's do it.
So let's find out.
I don't recall what I got for my first Christmas. I don't know when I went on my first outdoor picnic, but I do remember the first time I heard the sweetest voice in the wide world.
You can sit here if you want.
I had never seen anything so beautiful in my life. She was like an angel.
Well, you're gonna sit down, aren't you? What's wrong with your legs?
Oh, nothing at all, thank you. My legs are just fine and dandy.
I just sat next to her on that bus and had a conversation all the way to school.
My back's crooked like a question mark. These are gonna make me
And next to Mama, no
my
one
magic
ever talked to
shoes.
me or asked me questions.
Are you stupid or something?
Mama says stupid as stupid does.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Forrest Gump.
From that day on, we was always together. Jenny and me was like peas and carrots.
All right, Heather. So now you have watched Forrest Gump.
Yes, I have.
The entire way through.
Yes.
What did you think?
I liked it. I didn't
Okay.
love it,
All right.
but I liked it well enough.
Liked it well enough.
I liked it well enough.
All right. I will be perfectly honest. This is a movie that I really did adore. as a teenager. I had a lot of fondness for this movie. After watching it this time, pretty much all of that fondness has evaporated.
Really?
I did not care for it on this watch. It has aged very poorly. Things that I thought worked a long time ago, they don't land for me any longer.
Okay.
This is something that's a lot more clear to me now. This movie is member berries for boomers. It is 100% just a nostalgia trip for baby boomers. It is a cavalcade of remember this and remember when this happened and remember this guy and remember this moment in history and remember this other thing that happened. The movie has its lips planted firmly around the phallus of the baby boomer generation.
Oh, God.
It is very much lionizing their experiences and jumping through hoops to be as apolitical as possible.
Yeah, there is definitely that. I mean, I think you're right that it is very much pandering to baby boomers. At the same time, I feel like how much can we really judge that? Because a lot of things these days are designed to pander to millennials, which probably works a lot better for us because we are millennials.
Yeah.
But I definitely see what you're saying.
I had a bit of a fun exercise. What would a millennial Forrest Gump look like? So here are some scenes from millennial Forrest Gump, not in any particular order. As a kid, Forrest goes to watch a space shuttle launch and gives one of the astronauts his juice box. That shuttle was the Challenger.
Oh, God.
Forrest meets Vice President Bush as a child after winning a contest for being some kind of unexpected prodigy. Says the phrase, "My mama always says, read my lips." Forrest meets O.J. Simpson on the night of the Nicole Brown Simpson murders. Forrest meets Tupac Shakur, inspires the song Dear Mama.
Wait. Hold on. I want to go back to the O.J. Simpson one because now I'm having a thought about him somehow being involved in the Bronco chase.
Right. Forrest winds up on the Arsenio Hall show next to a saxophone playing Bill Clinton. Forrest meets a young Kurt Cobain and hands him a stick of Teen Spirit deodorant for some reason. Forrest bumps into Chris Farley, tells him about living in a van down by a river. Forrest goes to Iraq or Afghanistan instead of Vietnam. Pretty much every other part of that story is the exact same.
Well, yeah.
He gets the Medal of Honor from George W. Bush. The hurricane that wipes out the shrimping industry is Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
Forrest invests in some kind of mail company called Netflix. Or a little bookstore named after a forest in South America.
That was a pretty good accent.
Forrest meets a young senator from Illinois and tells him that my mama always says that when someone tells you no, you can't, you just say to them, yes, we can.
Those are all very good.
Yeah. So
excellent.
That would be the equivalent of millennial Forrest Gump.
And I wonder if we would like it better.
No,
because...
I would not. It would be so bad.
Because we would be like, yeah, I do remember that. I was there when that happened.
So some fun facts that I looked up about this movie. First of all, John Travolta was the original choice to play Forrest Gump.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine that?
No, I don't want to.
What if it was John Travolta doing his Hairspray accent? The bald one. My mom always told me life is like a box of chocolate.
That was really good.
And at one point, Barry Sonnenfeld, who directed Men in Black and the Addams Family movies, was attached to direct, but he left to make the Addams Family sequel, Addams Family Values.
Oh.
The movie departed from the book significantly. In the book, Forrest ends up as an astronaut, a pro wrestler, and a chess player.
Okay.
And
that's a little far-fetched.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's a little far-fetched. The movie as it stands is
perfect.
Real.
Yeah, no notes.
He's like some sort of eldritch god that like all of late 20th century American history revolves around this simple Alabama man.
Yeah.
But that would be too far-fetched. Forrest Gump in space. This movie regularly makes best of lists, top 100 lists. Do you feel like it deserves that honor? I
do. In some ways, yeah, I do. I mean, I think it's very well made. I think the performances are pretty excellent, especially Gary Sinise. I thought Gary Sinise was fantastic.
And he's the one who didn't win an Oscar, which is frustrating. He was beat, to be fair, he was beat by Martin Landau for Ed Wood in that year. 1994. God, we were spoiled rotten for good
Stacked.
movies in 1994. So it was a hard contest. But yeah, I feel like he's probably the most deserving of an award in this movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know. It's hard to say because I'm coming into this. I came into watching the movie and now recording this, knowing that it is a classic that is always on best of lists. So it's really hard for me to separate that knowledge from my own experience watching it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think it's a bad movie. I understand why it has the accolades that it has. I just think maybe it is being of a different generation. And as you said, in terms of it aging badly, there are things that happen in the movie that in 2025, I'm like, ooh, I don't love that.
Right.
So, but in its time, I could see people having a different perspective on it.
Yeah, I think at the time, I understand why it was a safe choice. It did split the votes and take away from movies that have aged better, like Shawshank Redemption and Pulp Fiction. So it rode out as the safe choice there. I think a lot of it is from when it was made, aside from the fact that baby boomers were in their 30s and 40s at that point, and so it really was peak nostalgia for them. When it was made, it feels like it comes from a much less cynical time. And the movie encourages you to view the world through Forrest's eyes. And Forrest has the intellectually disabled eyes of a child. And so you're viewing these world events through this sort of sheen of innocence. But also, it feels like the movie takes that stance. Things like the score, that just overly syrupy sweet score by Alan Silvestri, and the very swooping cinematic composition. It feels like the movie is trying to inspire you to feel. And I feel like when I watched it in the 90s and maybe even the early 2000s, it's hard to remember at this point, those feelings hit. And when I watched it now, I felt nothing.
Yeah.
So the emotional resonance of the movie, I don't think lasts. I don't think that it's survived the 30 years since it's been made.
I tend to agree with not really feeling the emotional resonance of it. It was just kind of like, these things are happening, but I don't have really any feelings about them because I think it's hard to relate to Forrest because life is not that simple. And so to see it through his eyes, it's like, well, he doesn't understand enough to really be a person that you can relate to, especially in some of these more difficult situations. I mean, again, going back to Gary Sinise, I think the emotional resonance that I felt the most was him reacting to his new circumstances and to what he thought his life and death were going to be, and then having to come to terms with that being different. That's when I felt something.
One of the things that really stood out to me this time watching the movie is that Lieutenant Dan is basically the only character. Everyone else is either just there as an archetype or they're just there to kind of push the story along or to push Forrest along. No one really has any kind of character arc. They all feel like cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
Except for Lieutenant Dan. Lieutenant Dan is the only person who has any sort of agency and any kind of character growth and character change. Everyone else just barely exists. I want to see the movie that is Lieutenant Dan's movie. That seems a lot more interesting.
You know, I didn't think about it in those terms, but you're absolutely right. I didn't really think that much about the other main characters who I don't even feel like are really main characters, even though I know they're billed as such and described as such in the little bit of Wikipedia research I did after watching the movie. But Sally Field and Bubba.
Yeah, Sally Field, whose character's name is just Mrs. Gump. She doesn't even have a first name.
Yeah. This movie does not pass the Bechdel test.
It does not. It fails spectacularly.
Jenny is interesting in that she could be an interesting character. There's a lot going on there, but we don't see enough of that. We don't get enough of her. We are only seeing her story through Forrest's eyes, really. Even in the parts where we're kind of seeing where she is and he's not there too.
When she's off sinning.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this could be an interesting story, but we're not getting enough.
Right.
Because this is just all about how she's wayward and she's going to be saved by the purity of Forrest's simple-mindedness.
Right. I want to talk about Jenny for a minute since you brought her up. I have a friend who absolutely fucking hates the character of Jenny. And it's not an uncommon sentiment to read on the internet because on a surface level reading of the movie, she is very cruel to an intellectually disabled lifelong friend.
And she sexually assaults him.
So there is a lot of negative sentiment towards Jenny, which can also be amplified by, people on the internet hating women.
Well,
but I have a very good friend who will go on rants about Jenny anytime that this movie comes up. And I was coming into it prepared to defend the character of Jenny because from a different perspective, this is a woman who is a survivor of abuse. She clearly has a lot of emotional trauma and she's gone through all of this in a time when help for that was not readily available and in a place in the country that is notoriously not good for that sort of thing.
It may still not be readily available in deep Alabama.
Right. So she's doing the best that she can. And when she abandons Forrest and then comes back, it's like, she feels bad because she's taken advantage of the one kind person in her life, the one kind constant. She felt like she abused him. And so she leaves out of guilt, not knowing that she's pregnant. And then when she finds out that she's pregnant, Forrest is just running across the country and is more or less unreachable. So it's not like she can track him down to tell him that she's pregnant. So I was coming to this prepared to defend Jenny as a character. Instead, I think neither take is correct. Jenny is not a character.
Yeah.
Jenny is a trope.
Yes.
Jenny barely exists. She is like the idealization of the Madonna horror complex, maybe. I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of a stretch. And
I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, she just barely exists on paper. When you don't find out anything about her inner life except that she's having a bad one.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then at the end, then she shows back up just in time to die tragically of probably AIDS.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Absolutely. That is exactly what I was thinking because as I was watching it, I did not like her. But then I am very sympathetic to the kinds of issues that we are told that she's experienced, but that you saying we don't get any of her inner life, that is the problem. We're just like, oh, she was abused. And now, we can sort of extrapolate that she's going through something because of her experiences in life. And she's abused by the guy that she's with when she's a hippie. And she's troubled, but we're not getting enough of her to be able to really connect with her as a character.
Yeah, this movie really wants you to read between the lines in a lot of places. And I don't know. I don't think it works.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so Forrest Gump opens with the CGI feather falling through the town square and the camera following it around with the iconic score playing in the background. This is a score that permeated the 1990s. It feels so syrupy sweet now. And I don't know if it's because of saturation or that overbearing sweetness just hasn't quite aged in the same way that, like, you know, you don't want to eat ice cream for every meal as an adult, but you might as a kid. Is it that same sort of thing where it's like, maybe
I love that analogy. That's perfect.
It's so saccharine. The score is so overly saccharine now. And it's just funny how much it's changed for me, because I do remember loving the music for this movie.
I like the soundtrack as compared to the score.
Yeah.
So especially later on in the movie, there's some music choices. I'm like, the music is awesome.
The soundtrack is like a best of Boomer hits. It is 100%.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, because I was thinking about that too when you were talking about this being designed to appeal to boomers. I was thinking about watching like Stranger Things, and then there was sort of a rash of other properties that really
Stranger
incorporated.
Things is like a horror movie version of Forrest Gump almost.
Yeah, but I remember people having the complaint because then there were other things that came out that were also set in the 80s, and then the music choices were like, we get it, we're in the 80s.
Right.
But I do love like 70s rock, so I was happy.
That's funny. The feather lands at the worn-ass tennis shoes of Forrest Gump, played by America's sweetheart Tom Hanks.
Covered in poop, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is that line that
he probably washed them off at some point. They
were
really worn.
they were really dirty, too.
Well, that's because they're like 5-year-old tennis shoes at this point. So.
Do you really think he washed them off?
I don't know. Good point. He puts the feather in a copy of Curious George. A bus passes by with a billboard advertising a 1981 car, letting you know what decade you're in, what year it is. Probably the last and only subtle thing in this movie.
1981.
Forrest has his first iconic line, "Hello, my name's Forrest Gump," as he starts talking to some poor nurse who just got off work. I did some looking into it. Forrest is clearly not, when they wrote the movie, they were not paying any mind at all to any real world intellectual disabilities or any other kind of learning disability or handicap. He is a combination of intellectually disabled and autistic in a lot of ways. So, you know, he does come off very autism coded when he's just talking at people who really could not give a shit. This poor woman is tired from her shift and she's just trying to read her People magazine.
I know. I was really not enjoying the beginning of the movie because the framing device made me so uncomfortable. And it gets better because as more people start showing up at the bus stop and he's continuing the conversation with them, they seem a little bit more interested.
They become
but
more
every
engaged.
time it would show him talking to her and her ignoring him, I was like, I want to crawl out of my skin. This is so awkward.
She is exhausted and she just wants to read her People magazine, man. She doesn't want to hear about your time in rural Alabama.
Oh, I did not like that at all.
So, waiting for the bus, Forrest starts his expositionary voiceover for the surrogate characters at the bus stop. A second iconic line, "My mama always said, life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get."
You asked me what the context was. The context is he has an actual box of chocolates.
Yes. We find that Forrest Gump's namesake founded the Ku Klux Klan. I remember this being played for laughs because in 1994, it felt like, well, you know, racism is done, so we can joke about this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
2025, it hits different.
Yeah, and the throwaway line about it is, my mama named me after him because she said that it's a reminder that some people do something that don't make no sense. And like,
that makes no sense.
Yeah.
That decision.
It's like, I'm going to name my son Adolf as a reminder that
yeah, oh my God, yes.
some people should pursue art. I don't know. Forrest Gump being named after the founder of the Ku Klux Klan, not a great look. Young Forrest gets braces put on his legs to help him walk, I guess, because this was apparently the dark ages of medicine.
Well, he has scoliosis.
He has scoliosis, and also apparently it was supposed to be related to his intellectual disability. It was to help him
I don't know.
walk, I guess. I don't know.
It really is not clear.
It is unclear. It doesn't necessarily matter. Forrest has apparently tested with an IQ too low for public school.
As told to him and his mother by the principal, played by Sam something.
Sam something.
I wrote, hey, Sam something in my notes.
Sam Anderson.
Look at me.
Look at you with your weird pop culture knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's that guy, and he pretty much exclusively plays smarmy characters, except for Bernard on Lost.
Yeah, Bernard is great.
But almost every other character he plays is
He
just
was also
a
in
smarmy dick.
He was also in The Stand. He had a bit role in The Stand, which we watched not that long ago.
Also with Gary Sinise.
Also
in
with
the
Gary
same year.
Sinise.
So Forrest's mom fucks the creepy principal to get Forrest into school.
Gross.
That scene was gross. He is making very loud, weird sex noises while Forrest is forced to wait outside. And then when he comes outside and says, your mama sure cares about your education, boy, then Forrest makes the weird sex noises back to him.
Oh, wow.
I remember that being a big laugh, both in the theaters.
I did
and
not
just in
find
general.
it funny at all.
No, it's not funny, and it's awkward more than anything.
It's disturbing at worst and awkward at best.
His mom, at one point, Mrs. Gump, tells him when he asks about his daddy, she had said he's on vacation to creepy principal. And Forrest says, what's a vacation, mama? And she says, vacation's when you go somewhere and you don't ever come back. So she apparently doesn't care that much about his education because she's more or less lying to him about what a vacation is.
Yeah, and I'm like, you shouldn't lie to someone with that low of an IQ about
Right.
what things mean, because that's going to really cause some issues in the future, I think.
Yeah, he clearly has a hard time grasping sarcasm and contextual clues.
Yeah.
So when you just straight up lie to him about the definition of a word, that's going to stick.
It's going to really confuse him when somebody tells him that they're going on vacation later in his life.
Yeah, I don't want to go on vacation because that means I'm never coming back home.
Way to go, Mrs. Gump.
Forrest's mom apparently invented the bed and breakfast, so has a bunch of people coming to stay, a bunch of why are all of these people coming to travel to this rural Alabama town anyway?
That's a good question.
Maybe if there's no hotel, they don't have anywhere to stay, so.
There's maybe a museum for the KKK because
maybe.
it started there.
We have our first historical cameo when a young Elvis Presley comes to stay at the Gump bed and breakfast, and Forrest teaches him his
We learn
dance because of his weird
Elvis stole
braces.
his iconic moves from a disabled child.
Elvis, also voiced by Kurt Russell, apparently.
Really?
In an uncredited
Interesting.
cameo. Forrest sets off to school, and we have the very famous seats taken scene where a bunch of kids, including Tom Hanks's daughter, don't want to sit next to Forrest.
Fun. Well, there's a couple things about this bus scene that I took note of. First of all, the bus driver was in Men in Black.
Yeah. Looked like he was wearing an Edgar suit.
Like a suit, like an Edgar suit.
Yeah.
And also, his mother didn't explain to him what the bus is because she's with him. And then he's like, I can't take a ride from a stranger. And I was like, your mother was just there. Why did she not tell you what you were waiting for? But then the bus driver introduces herself and Forrest introduces himself. And he's like, I guess we're not strangers anymore. And I was like, that happened in It. Pennywise was talking to the little kid, Georgie. Georgie's like, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. And then they introduce themselves. And Pennywise is like, see, we're not strangers anymore. He doesn't exactly say that. It's the same concept.
I thought you were going to do a Tim Curry impression.
No.
Forrest ends up sitting next to a young Jenny, who he says is the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. We're not even out of the first act, and this movie just felt to me like it was just covered in syrup, just drenched in syrup and sugar. We have our next catchphrase, stupid is as stupid does.
Yep, I remembered that. As soon as he said it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's one.
Forrest and Jenny bond, play together, and they have their little montage of bonding. Jenny didn't ever want to go home for some reason. for some reason. We have the scene where bullies pelt Forrest with rocks, and Ginny says the iconic line,
Run,
Forrest, run. That was another one that...
Yeah, as soon as we were approaching that scene, I was like, oh, of course, because when we were talking before we watched the movie, I could only remember the life as like a box of chocolates. But I was like, oh, of course, run, Forrest, run. And if I had remembered that, I would have been more confident in saying that he runs across the U.S. at the end of the movie. Because that's what he do.
Run, Forrest, run. Forrest's braces break off and he is able to outrun the children on bike.
He says something before we see that when he's talking to the poor woman at the bus stop about miracles. And then when the braces come off and he's running, I guess it's because he's running really fast, but it seemed like he was saying it was a miracle that he could run. I'm like, yeah, but the problem was his back, not his legs. His legs worked.
I don't know. It's 1950s Alabama. He was
sure.
Lucky that the doctor didn't say that he was a witch. Yeah, no, the poor woman at the bus stop is still trying to read her People magazine, and Forrest Gump is just droning on about his childhood friend and her horrible abuse at the hands of her father. The "Dear God, make me a bird so I can fly far, far away from here." That's another iconic line. Forrest being oblivious to Ginny's abuse didn't sit quite right with me this time around. I think one of the things that it did allow is it allowed for this movie to be family friendly. And for me, as like, a 13-year-old to be able to kind of process. I seem to recall when I watched this movie the first time that the depth of Ginny's abuse didn't necessarily land with me. I might have thought that it was more about like just physical abuse, like hitting, and not sexual abuse, even though Forrest has the lines about hugging and kissing and stuff like that.
Well, I think that's why in this moment when we first see or hear that that's what's happening, I can sort of forgive Forrest not understanding it. Even aside from his intellectual disabilities, he's a kid.
Right.
And so you can forgive a kid for not really understanding that. But I don't know if you mean you had a problem with him not realizing it.
I didn't have a problem with it. I had a problem with the movie glossing over it.
It is glossed over.
It very much tries to make it palatable, which sounds terrible when you say it. Like
because it is literally just that one line. She never wants to go home, and then her mom died, and her dad was always kissing on her and her sisters. Which this is when she gets taken away.
Which, how bad does the abuse have to be for you to get removed from your home in 1950s Alabama?
I mean, truly.
Like, that's, if the cops are taking you out of your home in 1950s Alabama, that is some truly egregious shit happening.
100%. My question, though, is what about her sisters?
I had that exact same thought, because you see, he said there's a line about her sisters, and then you see her very clearly getting taken
alone
to a relative
to her
by herself.
Yeah.
So fuck her sisters, I guess. And they are never mentioned again. The movie just completely forgets that Ginny has sisters.
I did not like that. I was like, oh, well, we know Jenny, so we're glad she's being rescued from this abuse, but we don't care about her sister.
Don't exist, apparently. Oh, that was bad. So time passes, and you can tell because now they are high school age, played by 40-year-old adults.
Yep.
This is before they have a lot of CGI chicanery in this movie where they inserted Forrest Gump into historical footage and a lot of other things.
I said pictures. I was misremembering that it was not photographs. It was actual footage. Was that the visual effects? Okay.
And you were right about the war. The inserting into historical footage, that was a huge part of the promotion
Gary
of the movie
Sinise's
too.
legs.
And Gary Sinise's legs.
Okay.
Yeah, those things were all the big CGI things. They had not yet invented CGI de-aging. So it's some of these scenes, especially when they're in high school and college, and they are very clearly adult ass Tom Hanks and
Robin Wright.
Alabama kids apparently just love throwing rocks. That's their go-to move. So,
well, what else are you going to do?
Forrest is getting rocks chucked at him again. And
he outruns a car.
40-year-old high school Tom Hanks outruns a car and runs into football practice, impresses the coaches, which gets him a football scholarship to the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
I remember at the time thinking the gags about Forrest not really knowing what to do with the football being hilarious, and it didn't really hit for me. And again, I don't know if it's just because of saturation, because I knew it was coming, but it just, I don't know, jokes at Forrest's expense don't feel quite right.
No, I agree. So I was thinking about the conversation that we had when we watched Napoleon Dynamite, which is my big issue with that movie is, does the movie want me to laugh at this person?
What does the movie want me to think about?
What does the movie want me to think about this? How does the movie want me to feel about this? That's what I said at the time, and I say it now too. I still don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't like the way it makes me feel.
I think that's fair. And unlike Napoleon Dynamite, I feel like the movie is maybe a little unnecessarily mean to Forrest at a couple of places. Mm-hmm. Not all the time, but at least with some of the football stuff, you can tell that it's being played for laughs. And I remember laughing, and this time I didn't laugh. There's the scene where there's the big integration standoff at the University of Alabama. Forrest Gump just happens to be there. Vivian Malone, one of the students, drops her notebook, and Forrest picks it up and hands it to her. Yeah. So racism is solved.
Yeah, that's like, that is the thing, is because I don't know. It's just so overly simplistic to be like, well, if you don't know any better, if you're somebody who's pure of heart, right, then you don't care about the color of someone's skin. So you can't be racist if you're,
even though you're named after the Ku Klux
you're
Klan
named after the
founder.
Right. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but okay, so we're saying that this white man was a part of this big moment in history. I didn't love that.
Yeah, Forrest sticking his head into the footage of a very real event that has very significant historical ramifications, and then just, oh, here's your notebook.
Yeah,
I don't know. It
rubbed me the wrong way.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't feel quite right. But again, in 1994, I think everyone was like, well, racism is done, so we can make these jokes.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. But it just feels unnecessary for a lot of reasons.
Very shortly after, we have Forrest going to visit Jenny at her college. He hears her maybe being assaulted. It's kind of unclear.
It's hard to tell what's happening because she's clearly like, ow, that hurts. But then when he tries to rescue her, she's mad at him.
Yeah, she's very mad about it because, I don't know.
She lives in Margaret Mitchell Hall. Margaret Mitchell wrote Gone with the Wind.
Oh. They end up going into Jenny's dorm room. So much of Jenny and Forrest's formative relationship, like their teen and their young adult years, is just yada, yada, yada over that you really have to imagine it. And that's, Jenny is a cipher. She doesn't exist as a character. She just kind of happens to be there and does whatever she needs to do to move the movie along.
Yeah. We talked before about the movie wanting us to read between the lines. And so I know, as a person who exists in the world, that somebody who experiences abuse as a child, that can have ramifications for the rest of their life. So it's not that I don't understand that what we find out happened to her as a little girl is going to continue to impact her as she grows older. But we jump from her father abusing her, and it's this child actress. And then suddenly we're with Robin Wright, and we're not seeing enough of how she has developed as a person. She's this adult version of her who does not then really continue to change throughout the rest of the years that we see, because it's the same actress throughout. It's jarring. I guess what I'm saying is that we don't get enough to be able to connect Robin Wright with what we saw of the character as a child.
Yeah, you're right. We don't. And we don't really get enough of their relationship to understand why she keeps Forrest around and why she is loyal to him.
Yeah.
Which allows the people who really hate that character to project a lot of preconceptions onto the character, or it allows you to defend the character because there's nothing there. Right. She is a tabula rasa of abuse victim. That's basically it.
We don't know why she keeps Forrest around, because when there is the gap between a child having a best friend with a limited capacity for understanding their trauma. That makes sense because children don't know anything, really. But as they get older, it is like she is going to be developing in a way that he is not. And we don't know what is continuing to hold their friendship together. And as a result, what happens here in this scene feels really exploitative on her part.
Yeah. So this is the scene in the dorm when they are soaking wet. Forrest has just chased off her suitor, ? And she takes Forrest back into her dorm room and they strip down to their underwear so they can dry off from the rain. And she starts asking him about being with girls, takes her bra off, and Forrest just immediately orgasms.
Yeah.
This is another scene that you definitely have different perspectives on it. As a 13-year-old, watching it, I was thinking, hey, this is great. As an adult watching, I'm thinking, she shouldn't be doing this with a person who cannot reasonably consent.
Exactly. Yes. And my other takeaway from this scene is her poor roommate.
Oh, yeah.
is awake in bed and hears all of this happen.
That is one of the scenes that did actually give me a chuckle.
It was
watching this movie.
It's not funny, but
the whole thing plays out, and then it cuts over, and you just see the horrified roommate,
and you hear Forrest say, "I think I ruined your roommate bathrobe."
Yeah. That gag. And then very shortly after, Forrest playing football, and the crowd has figured out how to cheer Forrest on, where they all are cheering and have banners that say "Run, Forrest, run." And then they unfurl a little "Stop, Forrest" banner. That is funny.
Yeah.
That gave me a bit of a chuckle, was the little "Stop, Forrest" banner. Forrest meets John F. Kennedy and gives him the "I gotta pee" speech after downing bottles and bottles of product placement Dr. Pepper. Another problem with Forrest Gump as a character is he is the most passive protagonist. For somebody that this movie is anchored around, he makes basically zero decisions.
Yeah.
He just does whatever is right in front of him at the time. The only times that he makes a decision are to go see his mom or to rescue Jenny when she's being abused.
Yeah.
And that is basically it.
Yeah.
He is an incredibly passive protagonist. And here's where he just wanders out of college, and there's an army recruiter right there. So he's like, I guess I'm going to the army.
You sound like Foghorn Leghorn.
Well, I reckon life is like a box of chocolates. That wasn't very good. Forrest boards the bus to the army, and it more or less repeats the scene of him as a child. And instead of sitting next to a lovely young woman, he gets seated next to Bubba, played by Michael T. Williamson. I mispronounced his name, so I'm going to own up to that. It's spelled...
It's an interesting spelling.
His actual name is Michael T. Williamson. So he spelled it phonetically as a stage name, presumably just to stand out. So it's pronounced Michael T.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Neither did I, because I've never heard it pronounced before. Clearly, Michael T. Williamson.
Okay.
So Michael T. Williamson playing Bubba Blue.
Yes.
Not Bubba Gump.
I did. Yeah. I realized when we meet him that I have heard the name Benjamin Buford Blue before.
Really?
Yeah, I did know that.
No one ever remembers his real name. Everyone just remembers Bubba. And you're right. A lot of people do remember Bubba Gump because of the fictitious, now real restaurant.
Yes.
Licensed
Have
from
you been there?
This movie. No.
I haven't either.
Michael T. Williamson's mouth had to have hurt sticking his
have to imagine
gum
his
out like that for the whole movie. I don't know if he had a prosthetic or if he was just doing it, but either way, it could not have been comfortable. Michael T. Williamson, the only character of color who has any significance in this movie. His entire personality is shrimp and dead.
Yes. Shrimp and dead. Yes. Yeah. He loves shrimp.
He is very autistic coded, even maybe more so than Forrest, because the montage where they're bonding through basic training, literally all he's doing is just naming different kinds of shrimp.
And that I recalled as the scene was happening. I'm pretty sure that I've seen that parodied in other things of just like a listing of things.
And in my head, I was thinking that couldn't possibly be it, because you have this friendship that's deep and lasting and it's meaningful when his character dies. And you have to think there's a reason that they were best friends. And no, the movie does not show you any of that. The movie is he is shrimp and then he is dead.
Well, yeah. So now we have these two bus scenes where he sits with Jenny and then he sits with Bubba. And so really all it takes to inspire Forrest's lifelong devotion is to let him sit next to you on the bus.
Right. And then you are his lifelong friend.
Yeah, that's it.
He imprints on you like a baby animal.
Yeah, because we really don't know, other than that, why they have these strong bonds.
There are some brief flashbacks of Bubba's family being servants and or slaves to white families, which felt kind of dark, but it has a nice payoff later on. Forrest excels in the army because he does everything literally. He follows instructions and he is a physical savant when it comes to things. So even though Forrest had been struggling intellectually, he is the perfect soldier according to his drill sergeant.
Yeah, I think it's super problematic for someone of Forrest's intellectual capacity to join the army.
Right.
You should not send somebody to die who does not understand what they are even doing.
Yeah.
I had a huge problem with that.
Meanwhile, Ginny apparently posed for Playboy, which got her thrown out of college.
The reveal of this to me was so weird because the guy in the bunk next to Forrest rolls over and hands him the magazine. And I was like, what is this interaction? It was so random.
She becomes a singer in what looks like a burlesque type show. It's somewhere between
a folk singer. I really don't think that people would be into that, which they're not, because
it's somewhere between a strip club and a burlesque show, but like not really either. It's a weird sort of amalgam, and I don't know if
it has amphitheater seating.
I did zero research into how historically accurate it is. So maybe this is a thing that happened in the early 60s. The line where Forrest says, her dream had come true. She was a folk singer. That's so dark.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it feels like it's funny in a way that the filmmakers didn't intend for it to be funny.
We have another moment here where she's getting harassed on stage by some patrons of whatever this establishment is, and Forrest goes up to defend her and starts punching them, and she gets mad at him. And this sort of ties in to what we were saying about not knowing why they're even still friends, because he doesn't understand Jenny, so why are you getting mad at him for trying to defend you?
In this case, I think it's a reasonable reaction because he likely cost her job.
I guess that's
or
true,
at least
but
a night of performance or got her in trouble. So I think that's a reasonable reaction.
How did he know where she was? Because he sees the picture, which is what got her kicked out of college, and the picture is what landed her this job. But how does he know? Because if she told him,
I don't know.
Then I don't really have any sympathy for her.
Yeah. Jenny drops the line where she says, "You don't know what love is," which pays off later, very famously. Jenny in this scene is kind of suicidal. They are walking outside of the burlesque ? Show.
It's a place of ill repute.
The place of ill repute. And she teases jumping off of the bridge. The music does not fit the scene at all. The music is all magical and tinkly, the score, and it's like, this is not appropriate, Alan Silvestri. What are you doing? It's a very
maybe
dark
he
moment.
scored the movie without knowing what it was about.
I don't think you can do that. Forrest tells Jenny just before she hitches away that he is getting shipped off to Vietnam. So Jenny makes him Vietnam, and Jenny makes him promise to run if he's ever in trouble. Cut to Vietnam with the helicopters and Fortunate Son.
Love Fortunate Son.
This is probably where the trope really came from. This movie and Apocalypse Now with the 60s soundtrack playing. This is more or less the platonic ideal of the Vietnam movie trope. It has been parodied so much that this scene felt like parody because now anytime anybody does a Vietnam reference, they're going to be playing Fortunate Son.
I really like CCR. I don't like war. Put me on the record.
That's a controversial stance.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't love watching war media, but I'm happy at the beginning of this scene because this music slaps, and also we're about to meet Gary Sinise.
You're right. We are introduced to
Hot.
Lieutenant Dan, played by Gary Sinise, the one character in this movie. The one cutaway gag in this movie that I really enjoyed was the shot of all of Lieutenant Dan's family members dying in every war, and they were all played by Gary Sinise.
That was fun. I liked that. What is the deal with protecting your feet? Is that because he's going to lose his feet?
Oh, maybe. It's like I didn't even think about like heavy foreshadowing.
He's obsessed with, that's one of his 2 rules. Don't get killed and protect your feet.
Vietnam is famously swampy, so that might have been a real thing. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely some heavy-handed foreshadowing there that, to be fair, I missed. But yeah, that's a good call. At this point, the voiceover narration of Forrest telling you everything, especially when it was something that was about to happen, that really started grating to me at this point. I was over it at this point of the movie. At this point of the movie, and we're not even out of Vietnam yet. This was a part where Forrest says, "I believe some of the finest young men ever served in this war." And it's like, God damn, could this movie suck off boomers any harder? It's so, it was really, really, really obvious during the Vietnam sequence. And it's so funny because I didn't pick it up as a younger person, but now I'm just like, man, they were really just bending over backwards to try and make everyone feel good about happening to be alive during this period of history. Jenny at this time, while Forrest is in Vietnam, goes full hippie. This is, oh my God, I laughed so hard. She leaves an Airstream trailer and gets into a VW bus. And they are in full-on stereotypical hippie garb. Yep. It is beyond parody how much of a stereotype she is. Back in Vietnam, we have For What It's Worth scene again. If we're going to hit all of the Vietnam notes,
too.
Then For What It's Worth gets interrupted by horrible violence. And the one scene where you actually feel like, oh yeah, it's a war. A couple of soldiers are as eviscerated as they can be in a PG-13 movie. So they bug out. Forrest outruns everyone because he is an exceptional runner, and then goes back to rescue his surviving platoon members.
So we skipped over something that's going to come back later, which is him and Bubba making the agreement that they're going to run a shrimp boat together when they get out of Vietnam.
Bubba's entire personality is shrimp.
Until very soon when it will change over to dead.
Forrest goes back and rescues the surviving members of his platoon, including Lieutenant Dan, who wants to be left there, but Forrest does not leave him. He finally does go back and gets Bubba, but Bubba is fatally wounded.
It looks like
not survive.
It would be so painful for Bubba to be hauled across the island.
His guts are just
jungle.
His guts are coming out of him. He's dying, and they have napalm coming in right behind them.
And Forrest is like fireman carrying him and just running, and he's being jostled the entire way. I'm like, that looks so painful.
Not a great way to go, but he's in shrimp heaven now.
Forrest says that something jumps up and bites him.
Yeah, something bit me.
And
that was another example of, he says in the narration, it felt like something jumped up and bit me. And then Forrest goes, ow, something bit me.
Yeah. Ugh. And then after he's telling this part of the story, we see he's talking to a random man at the bus stop now. And the man's like, it was a bullet, wasn't it? And I was like, hey, I also assumed it was a bullet, random bus stop man.
Got to make sure that the slow people in the audience didn't miss anything. In the hospital, Lieutenant Dan is depressed that he didn't die in the war. He has now lost his legs. And
I was right. I was sort of right. I was half right because I said I believed that he lost a limb. He lost 2 limbs.
He lost both of his limbs, and he hates ice cream. Forrest finds out that all of his letters to
He
Ginny...
doesn't hate ice cream. He's just sad. He's too sad for ice cream.
And Forrest finds out that all of his letters to Ginny have been returned. In the hospital, Forrest becomes a ping pong prodigy.
So randomly. I mean,
There's
it's
the
like,
scene-
what?
There's the scene where Lieutenant Dan pulls Forrest out of his bunk, and you've got Gary Sinise just acting his heart out next to Tom Hanks, who is just blinking.
Yeah.
You know, I really like Tom Hanks as a performer. I will go on the record and say Tom Hanks does not have a lot of range. Tom Hanks is great at playing Tom Hanks parts. There was this movie called Road to Perdition where Tom Hanks played an old-timey hitman. Did not work. Tom Hanks cannot play a hitman.
He's America's sweetheart, as you said.
I will say that Tom Hanks's performance in this movie is iconic, only so much that this movie was the second biggest movie of 1994 and everyone saw it. I don't know that this was a good performance from Tom Hanks.
You know, I don't know. I don't know that I think that this character is as much of a caricature as it could be. And I mean, in some ways, I'm not going to say it's a really nuanced performance or a portrayal of somebody with an intellectual disability.
There is no nuance.
No, but it could have been worse. And I do think that there's a line that an actor would have to walk to make it. I don't know. It's hard to say. And I think part of that, again, is because it's 2025. And so like we've seen more examples of people playing characters who have issues of all sorts than people may have in 1994. I don't know. But I mean, you're right that compared to Gary Sinise, it is like he's not stretching his acting chops as much as Gary Sinise is. And I will
Gary Sinise is putting in a fantastically believable performance.
Yes, he's incredible.
Tom Hanks is a cartoon character.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also a cartoon character, so
Yeah.
Who am I to judge?
So in a very eventful day, Forrest gets the Medal of Honor, shows Lyndon B. Johnson his ass, then wanders into a Vets for Peace group on the Washington Mall and winds up being prompted to speak. Some officer pulls the cables out while he speaks so no one can hear him. To me, this stood out as the quintessential moment where the movie tries to have it both ways.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid and I watched this movie, I 100% read that Forrest was going to be speaking in a way that made the army look good.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, after what he went through, no sane person coming back from all of that could be speaking about how great the war in Vietnam was.
But we have no reason to believe.
You don't get to hear what he said. I think some people have like amped up, and it's like Connor Roy's funeral speech.
Oh,
it's like,
yeah,
it's basically like
sense.
Some people went to Vietnam and then they didn't come home and now they're sad. And I think that's sad. It's something like that.
Okay.
So it's incredibly neutral, but you don't get to hear it. The movie really just lets you project whatever you want to.
I was nervous when he was being put into this lineup and pulled to the front of the line. And I was like, oh my God, what's he going to say? Because these are peace rallyists. And if he praises the war in Vietnam, they're going to turn on him. I did not know that the gag was going to be that nobody could hear him. But the whole thing is just, but you're absolutely right. Because I'm like, he's not going to be like, this war is an unwinnable war. And, we should pull the troops out and whatever else. Like,
this war is a quagmire that will affect the psyche of Americans for generations to come. But the soundtracks depicting this war in movies in the future will be awesome.
Have you heard For What It's Worth? Because that song is a banger. So I don't know. It is it's milquetoast.
That is the perfect word for this movie. This entire movie is milquetoast. So right after that, Jenny Ex Machina. Jenny just happens to be there, and
well, of course she is. She's a hippie.
The crowd is dead quiet, which for a packed Washington Mall is kind of crazy anyway. But you can hear her yelling for Forrest, and she wades out into the reflecting pool, and then Forrest runs out to meet her there, and they have their iconic reunion in the reflecting pool.
And everyone cheers.
Ginny introduces Forrest to the Black Panthers. Another example of a line that I remember being somewhat amusing, and they really played up for laughs, but it didn't really land with me. It was the sorry I got into a fight at your Black Panther party.
I thought that was kind of funny. I didn't really love the Black Panther that is talking to him, who is evangelizing about their purpose. And, you know, that's really important. What the Black Panther stood for is really important, but it's like completely lost on Forrest. So I was like, what even is this? Like, he doesn't know what you're saying.
Yeah. And Forrest is distracted because Ginny has, again, hooked up with some wiener hippie guy who slaps her. And then Forrest goes completely apeshit on slappy guy. And apparently everyone at the Black Panther party is
pro-slapping. Or at least pro-slappy guy.
We're cool with slapping around Robin Wright, but defending her, not cool. You got to leave.
Yeah, they leave, and it's like the slappy guy who's gone off to, you know, lick his wounds, and then Black Panthers and one other random white woman. It felt like it was kind of making the Black Panthers a punchline, which...
This movie makes history a punchline.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, it's either nudging you and saying, hey, remember this? Or it's nudging you and saying, hey, isn't this kind of funny, this thing that happened? This scene... Hey, remember this guy? Well, he died later.
Yeah. This scene didn't sit well with me.
After catching Forrest up on her hippie life, Ginny then leaves with the wiener guy on the bus. Forrest gives her his Medal of Honor because he has two people in his life at this point since Bubba's dead.
This is when she's leaving with Slappy Guy. She forgives him and they go off together. And there is a line here, a line of Forrest that did make me laugh, which is when he's like, well, I think you should go back to Greenbow, Alabama.
Everyone watches Forrest play ping pong instead of the moon landing, which is ridiculous. No one on earth would watch a guy playing ping pong against a wall instead of the moon landing in 1969. That gets Forrest a chance to go to China when diplomatic relations were opened with China. He ends up on a talk show next to John Lennon. Forrest has to mention, anytime he talks to anyone famous who died, Forrest has to mention that they died. He's almost like a Stephen King character. Like, you meet this simple guy from Alabama and then you will reach peak fame and then die horribly. Forrest leaves the talk show and is confronted by a haggard Lieutenant Dan in New York at the top of the ramp outside of the stage door in his wheelchair. And then Lieutenant Dan slips. There's an icy ramp. And it's like, how did he get up there?
That is a really good point. I said never wheelchair angry because he's mad. But also, it's really slapsticky
Very slapsticky. It's also very, very directly referencing Midnight Cowboy. They even have the famous line, the I'm walking here. There's a point where it's like, this isn't a parody. You don't have this is not a parody movie. This is not, not another teen movie. This is a prestige picture. So it's weird that it so directly references Midnight Cowboy. And this section of the film is basically like, it's just Midnight Cowboy, but with Forrest Gump. Everything about this scene and this segment of the movie feels like it was designed to get Gary Sinise the Oscar. It really does. So they go, they have their New Year's bender. Dan promises that he will be Forrest's first mate if Forrest ever does become a shrimp boat captain.
I mean, he says it very mockingly because he doesn't believe that he's going to be able to do it.
There's a brief shot of Ginny shacking up with some guy, not Slappy. It looks like a different guy, but she has a black eye and leaves in the middle of the night. And that's it. It's just a brief, hey, remember Ginny exists and she's having a terrible life.
Yeah.
she's not with Forrest, so she's being punished.
Wikipedia says that she's a prostitute.
Is
that this scene that we're supposed to get that? Because unless
maybe that is so subtle.
I didn't realize it. I did not know that.
I didn't realize
that
it
until I read that on Wikipedia.
Even on this
it describes Jenny's character as engaging with drug use and
sex work
and they say prostitution specifically. What I had noted in this scene, which is what made me think that maybe this is where we were supposed to see that, is what she's wearing, because she's kind of shifting identities, and that is expressed through her wardrobe because, you know, she's a hippie and she's very much a hippie. It's like she's wearing a hippie costume from
like
Spirit Halloween.
The platonic ideal of a hippie.
Yeah, I mean, and then in this scene, she's wearing a tight dress and like big jewelry and heels. And so my thing was, when did she shift from being a hippie to whatever this is? And so then when I read about her being a sex worker on Wikipedia, I was like, is that what that outfit was supposed to signify? The outfit and the context, and, you know, she's slipping out of this apartment or, you know, wherever she is. It's late at night. She sees that she has a black eye. Is that what's going on here? Because I didn't pick that up.
I didn't pick
and
that up
I have no
either.
idea if it's 100% accurate, but that's what Scholarly Journal Wikipedia said. I can't take credit for that naming because that's what they say on another podcast.
Yeah, they could have made it more apparent if they wanted to.
But it's kind of like how her childhood sexual abuse is glossed over.
Yeah, it's very much like, we're going to make sure that you know that Jenny is being punished for not staying with the intellectually disabled guy who loves her and is going through a hard time, but we're going to make it as palatable and digestible as we possibly can.
So it's easy to miss, but the signs are sort of there if you squint.
We're going to make her suffering as 4-quadrant friendly as possible.
It's like the outfits and the drugs that she's doing are how we see her life through the ages, through the years.
Anytime she's not with Forrest, if there's a little glimpse of Jenny's life, it's terrible.
Yeah. What is she wearing? What drugs is she doing? That's how we know where she's at.
Right. After the New Year's party, Dan and Forrest take a couple of women home, but when one of them aggressively tries to make out with Forrest, he pushes her off, and when she calls him stupid, then Lieutenant Dan defends Forrest. This does give us the other iconic line, "She tastes like cigarettes," which is something I always thought of anytime I kissed a smoker. I did get a kick out of Forrest being annoyed by meeting the president again. That was pretty funny. And another instance of Forrest being this Stephen King Dark Tower character where everything in the universe revolves around him. He calls in the Watergate burglary and seals Richard Nixon's fate after Richard Nixon recommended the Watergate Hotel to him. Forrest goes home to meet his mom. For all the CGI trickery they did, Sally Field is only 9 years older than Tom Hanks, so I don't think her old age makeup is all that convincing, to be perfectly honest. But Mrs. Gump, the character with no first name,
maybe Mrs. is her first name.
She's savvy enough to get him some endorsements. He goes to visit Bubba's family. The line, "Are you stupid?" or something runs throughout the movie, which is played for laughs. It just feels mean.
Yeah.
Forrest becomes a shrimp boat captain, gives his boat the name Jenny because it is the most beautiful name in the whole wide world, which, you know what? So many boomers had millennial kids named Jennifer that probably is a very common sentiment, to be perfectly honest.
I'm sure it is. Well, and do you know why that is?
Why there were so many Jennifers?
Yeah.
No.
Love Story. The main character in the movie Love Story was Jennifer. Huh. And I'm pretty sure, because I've seen this, I've looked at those maps of the most popular name across the country over a number of years. And there were several years in like the 70s where in every single state, the most popular name was Jennifer. And I'm pretty sure that it was related to that movie.
Speaking of Jenny, we have our scene with Jenny doing cocaine in some disco club and then heroin and cocaine to Freebird. And then she has her moment of contemplating suicide on a balcony ledge because, again, the movie is punishing her for not being with Forrest.
Yeah. It feels a little early for heroin and cocaine. Think of those as being more 80s drugs.
Heroin, maybe. Cocaine, no. Cocaine was all over the 70s.
Okay.
Lieutenant Dan shows up to wherever they are, Louisiana?
Yeah, I think so.
I was not paying attention.
Forrest is waving from the boat. I've definitely seen that shot. That's a
that
GIF.
Forrest waving
Yeah.
.gif. I've used it. But Lieutenant Dan shows up to
He's keeping his
fulfill
promise.
to be Forrest's first mate.
He says he needs to get his sea legs. And Forrest says,
You ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan.
which is not actually accurate. He still has legs, just
Right.
not all of them.
You ain't got no shins, Lieutenant Dan. I don't know.
Doesn't have the same ring to it, I guess.
They are unsuccessful at shrimping, but then a big hurricane comes in.
I feel bad. We didn't mention it, but when they're in Vietnam, Forrest mentions that Dan has feelings about where to go. He's following his gut instincts. And I mean, obviously the platoon does end up getting attacked, but I think it seems like in general, his gut instincts are fairly trustworthy for keeping his men safe. And in this scene, when they're on the shrimp boat, he is saying, this is where we're going to find the shrimp. Like, this is where you should go, turn this way. But they keep pulling up boots and cans and not shrimp. So it kind of makes me feel bad for Lieutenant Dan because, you know, he's had a rough go of things and his instincts are no longer trustworthy.
That is a really good example of Lieutenant Dan's story being so much more interesting than Forrest's story. Lieutenant Dan's movie would be amazing, and you just have this intellectually disabled friend who shows up and saves his life and then shows up and makes him a millionaire. And then, you know, he learns to cope with that and finds love. Like that's a fantastic movie. I want to watch
that movie. It really is.
I
want to watch it too. Oh my God. It's honestly heartbreaking because in this scene, he's so enthusiastic. He says, he's telling Forrest, turn left. And of course, there's the joke about how Forrest doesn't know which way left is. So, and then he's like, that's where we'll find the shrimp, my boy. And then they find no shrimp. They find no shrimp. I'm like, oh, Dan, I'm so sorry.
So the hurricane comes in and devastates the Gulf shrimping industry, but the Jenny survived. And because of that, because of the lack of competition, then they are able to catapult the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company into the #1 shrimp distributor in the United States.
We get several shots of them opening the nets, and I wrote, that is so much fucking shrimp.
There was a lot of shrimp.
It was so much.
Dan does have his moment where during the hurricane, he's raging at God, but then after they become successful, here's the moment where he just jumps over the side of the boat and has his baptismal-like swim in the picturesque waters. And Forrest says he made his peace with God.
Yeah. All the sitting in church while Forrest was singing in the choir paid off.
And he has the line, I never thanked you for saving my life, Forrest.
Oh, you railed at him for saving your life.
Forrest finds out that his mom is sick because all the female characters in this movie exist for Forrest to love and project on and then die.
All the female characters and characters of color.
Yeah.
It really is, of the 5 main characters, only the 2 white guys survive.
I miss the innocence of the 90s that this wasn't considered corny as fuck. I think if you tried to release this movie today, everyone would deride it for being overly sentimental and overly corny and overly hokey. And this movie plays it absolutely straight. And just the fact that you could get away with that and people didn't just rake it over the coals for being so corny and so syrupy sweet. This movie didn't make me nostalgic for the decades that it portrayed. It made me nostalgic for the time that you could release this movie and everyone would not immediately mock it. Forrest's mom dies of the cancer, but it turns out Lieutenant Dan invested some of their shrimp money in some kind of fruit company. So now they are multimillionaires. Forrest becomes a philanthropist, giving away a lot of his money to all of the various organizations that have helped him or people he's cared about over the years. He also takes care of Bubba's family, giving them their half. That would have been Bubba's half had Bubba survived. And the nice payoff here is where you have the shot where Bubba's mom now has a white lady servant who brings her the shrimp. So that was a nice payoff. I did like that.
Me too.
Forrest begins his lawn mowing phase of his life. Jenny shows up and stays with him for a little while.
Her outfit is much more conservative here. So
So you can tell that she's given up her life of sin.
Yeah. Yep. She's doing better, and we can sympathize with her again. We can empathize with her again.
Right. No, it's okay the movie is saying she doesn't deserve punishment now. She has her breakdown outside her childhood home. Sometimes there's not enough rocks. And Ginny gives him his sneakers that he then wears out and is wearing in the opening scene. Forrest, drunk on product placement Dr. Pepper, proposes to Ginny. And that's when you have the iconic line that comes as a payback from what she said earlier. I may not be a smart man, but I do know what love is. That same night, is when Ginny comes into his bedroom and has sex with him, sleeps with him.
Still not really okay with it.
Right. Even though she's rejected him and rejected his marriage proposal in a moment of weakness, she comes to him and does the thing that she knows how to do because she's a victim of abuse and has had very bad relationships. The next day, she runs away?
Yeah. And I'm not kidding about the fashion choices, because I really did notice the things that she was wearing. And when she shows up, a few scenes ago, she is wearing a pretty conservative, just like skirt and sweater. It actually is kind of evocative of 50s, like when they would wear the sweaters with the poodles. Like that's kind of what it reminds me of a little bit. It's very innocent. And then when she runs away the next morning, she is wearing a flowy dress with a vest. It's hearkening back to the hippie aesthetic. And so to me, it really read as like she's slipped again into being a bad girl. And so now she's not wearing acceptable clothes anymore. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm making too much of it, but like,
no, I think you're right.
Told
I think this
a story to
movie
me.
is slut shaming Ginny as a character. The incredible on the nose dialogue with the cab driver stood out to me, because why is the cab driver's like, where are you running off to? And she says, I'm not running. And it's like, that. First of all, maybe she wasn't running. Like maybe she just doesn't have a car and she was going to the store to pick something up.
Yeah, she was gonna make breakfast.
She made her bed and Forrest just freaks out because he thought she ran, and Forrest just ran off.
Yeah.
And so she comes back. Forrest is gone.
She has like eggs and bread to make French toast.
So she didn't actually leave, but Forrest does feel abandoned and sad. I'm going to read to you my note that I wrote down on my laptop verbatim at this point. The one time in the movie, the fucking score doesn't tell us how to feel. Oh, I typed too soon. There it fucking is. Forrest is feeling abandoned and it's just sitting there in silence. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is actually powerful. The music's not trying to tell us how this movie is going. And then right as I had that thought, it kicks in and just dumps molasses on your face.
Yeah.
So this is when Forrest just starts running and keeps going. This is the segment where Forrest starts running across the United States. Apparently at least 3 times. The news keeps referring to Forrest as a gardener from Alabama and not, I guess they did zero research. They could have called him an early investor in Apple computers.
A war hero,
a Medal of Honor recipient, or a shrimp magnate.
Or a college football star.
A college football star. They just refer to him as a gardener from Alabama.
They didn't have the internet.
They were the news. It's the fucking news. That's how people knew things. So Forrest does his runs across America. He gains his running acolytes. He accidentally coins shit happens and accidentally invents the have a nice day smiley face.
Yeah, okay, that was way too ridiculous. Like, that was the one where I was like, no, I do not accept this.
Right, we're fine with him firing Imagine, but...
Yeah, I mean, I rolled my eyes at Imagine. I rolled my eyes at shit happens. When he wipes his face on the t-shirt and it's the smiley face, I was like, no, I reject this.
I reject this premise.
I draw the line at this.
So after 3 years of running, Forrest just stops in the middle of the road in the desert. He picks probably the worst place in the world to do it because there's nothing around. And he just says, I'm tired. I think I'm going to go home. And then he does.
He does.
He gets a letter from Ginny telling him where she is. And now we are caught up from the narration. So Forrest goes to Ginny's apartment and sees her in her waitress uniform because, of course, any woman who has had a hard life and is now trying to make it as a single mom works as a waitress in a diner with a uniform like that.
And she has mom haircut.
They catch up a little bit. She shows him her scrapbook where she's been following along with his many careers.
Which I would just like to point out that you said way earlier that it's not like she could get in touch with him because he was running across the country, but like she knew where he was because the newspapers were following him.
And then her babysitter drops off Forrest Jr., played by little Haley Joel Osment.
Baby Haley Joel Osment, entirely too precocious.
What's his character's name in What We Do in the Shadows?
Topher.
His name's Forrest. I named him after his daddy. Forrest still doesn't get it. I named him after you, Forrest. We had sex.
Yeah.
And I got pregnant. And he's my son. And he's your son because you fathered him, Forrest.
But this moment because Forrest starts to freak out.
This is the Tom Hanks acting moment.
Yeah, but Jenny says it's okay, you didn't do anything wrong. And then Forrest is worried that
is he smart or is he like me?
Yeah. And I'm like, this is why you shouldn't have sex with someone who you have to assure them that they didn't do anything wrong by impregnating you, and then also assure them that their child is not like them. That really bothers me.
It's not great. And it's one of the reasons why people will hate on Jenny. You know, she made a mistake. People make mistakes.
That's true.
Here's somebody who is the one kind person to her in her life. And she tried to get close to him in the only way that she knows how. And she immediately felt guilty about it, but then was pregnant and didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And apparently, supposedly at some point got HIV, and in between, who knows? But yes, Jenny reveals that she is sick.
With a virus.
A virus. They don't know what it is.
In 1981.
It's likely.
After a hard life of drugs and sex.
Likely the AIDS.
Yeah.
Forrest asks her to move in and she proposes to him. So, this movie, it almost plays like the movie feels like this is making it right. In a way, if you think about it practically, this works best for Forrest Jr. because it's going to be a lot easier for Forrest to marry her and take care of her while she is terminally ill. And from a practicality standpoint, it makes sense, but the movie treats it maybe a little more romantically than it should. It treats it kind of romantically in a wistful, like better late than never sort of way.
Yeah.
Like this is making it right. And
it's all just, it's icky.
It didn't feel icky to me, but it just didn't feel correct either. It just feels, it doesn't.
You're making a face
wrong.
like it's icky.
Yeah, you're right. All right. Maybe it is icky. They have their wedding scene, Ginny in her full-on barefoot hippie bride outfit, and Lieutenant Dan.
Now she's getting married so she can be a hippie without being a slut.
Right.
That's how it works.
That's exactly how it works. Lieutenant Dan shows up to the wedding. Lieutenant Dan, you got new legs, Lieutenant Dan. With his fiance or his wife, his fiance, Susan.
I'm so happy for him.
Even though they make him stand for the whole wedding.
I know. I was like, can he not sit? I know his legs are made of titanium, but
like if there's one person at the wedding who should be allowed to sit, it's the person with artificial legs.
I was wondering if maybe it was supposed to be like, well, he had to sit for however many years because he was in a wheelchair.
Maybe.
And so now he's like standing.
It's symbolic. And also it's so the audience can identify him because he does stand out, which like you would think he would be standing next to Forrest. He would be like Forrest's best man standing next to Forrest or something. Or,
I don't know.
Or sitting up closer, but it does make him read better on screen. But they didn't even have a chair for him. It wasn't like it wasn't like
well, they assumed he would have his own chair.
Ginny, then sick and dying in the same bedroom in the same pose as his mom, is certainly a choice that the movie made.
It's really never a great thing to make a mother and a love interest parallel, but especially not when you're talking about somebody who has an IQ of 75.
Yeah. It's not great. It feels like the movie wants you to be emotionally invested in this, but
I know it wasn't.
She tells Forrest that she loves him, and that's her last line. Forrest continues narrating to her gravestone because it's the only time that anyone is forced to sit there and listen to him is when they're dead.
Or at the bus stop.
Or at the bus stop and waiting. I'm going to read again my notes verbatim. The restraint to not have any music during the graveside scene is pretty good considering considering the rest of the movie. Once again, as soon as I type that, the fucking music comes in.
You just needed to give it a second.
I'm like, oh, I like this filmmaking choice. It's letting the power of the moment. Nope. Fucking piano and strings telling me to be sad. God damn it. Forrest raises little Haley Joel Osment, which is borderline criminal.
Yeah, I question that.
It would be one thing if he had people in his life that were obvious, that were like helping him out. You know, was Lieutenant Dan there? Is Lieutenant Dan going to help raise little Forrest? Is the Bubba's mom? Anybody really, other than Forrest doing this on his own? But the movie kind of posits that Forrest is going to be a good father because he's very loving. And I'm like,
that's not enough.
That's not enough.
No.
There's going to be a point when little Forrest is smarter than his dad. Pretty much now.
Like a year maybe.
Yeah. Also, it feels criminal to have him go to rural Alabama public school when Forrest Gump has so much money.
Yeah.
He has so much money. He could live anywhere.
At least send him to a private school.
Send him to a private school or something. But no, he's got to go to the same shitty rock throwing school that Forrest's mom had to bang the creepy principal of to get him into.
He's still there, you think?
I don't know. The bus driver is still there and apparently hasn't aged a day.
Yeah, a little bit. They gave her a little bit of old age makeup.
They gave her a haircut. Junior gets on the bus, introduces himself in the same way that Dad did. I'm Forrest Gump.
He's carrying a tote bag that's as big as he is.
Which has the Curious George book in it that Forrest's mom read to him when he was a child. The feather that fell into the book at the beginning falls out and then flies up to symbolize, I don't know, life.
Well, okay, so this is what I thought about the feather, is that there is talk of destiny. There are a few moments where Forrest's mom talks about destiny and Lieutenant Dan talks about destiny. And I think Forrest says he wonders which of them is right. And he says something about, is there destiny or are we just floating accidentally on a breeze? And that, I was like, so the feather.
Deep.
Yeah. And then the feather flies away and hits the camera. And I said, so I guess the movie thinks there is no destiny because clearly this feather is just floating randomly.
And it's destined to hit you in the face.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I mean, if there is anything I know to be true, it's that life is destined to hit you in the face at least once.
Yeah. So that was Forrest Gump.
That was Forrest Gump.
That was the end.
I don't know. I mean, Gary Sinise did a lot to save it for me.
Yet Gary Sinise ruined his back carrying this movie. Yeah. I really did. I remember having a lot of fondness for this movie. If you had asked me in high school, I probably would have named it as one of my favorite movies. Whew. Boy, I remember thinking that it was going to be played out and maybe a little bit trite before we watched it. I did not anticipate disliking it, actively disliking it as much as I did. I
feel kind of bad. I feel bad that we had to watch this movie for the podcast and then it ruined it for you.
Yeah, well, it ruined itself for me, Heather.
Okay.
The podcast didn't ruin it.
Okay.
The movie ruined itself. You know, if I had to name maybe a top 100 movie list, I think it's important for historical context. I think it's important for what it did for film history, for how it advanced visual effects and dramatic storytelling. I think it's interesting to watch as a time capsule of two very different performances where you've got Gary Sinise acting his hard out and Tom Hanks deciding to do his accent based on the kid that played him on the school bus. But I don't think it's a good movie unless you were doing like a film studies class and you wanted to know about important movies in history. I think it would be worth watching for that reason, but I don't think that it's a movie that I would recommend as something that's like an enjoyable movie at this point. I did not care for it.
I mean, as we've talked about it, I've realized that there really wasn't that much that I did specifically like about it, aside from Gary Sinise's performance and his character. I agree. I really wish that there was a movie about Lieutenant Dan, but I mean, I wasn't miserable watching it. It's not like I don't know that I would say that I was, well, no, I guess some parts I was actively disliking. I'm glad to hear you say it because I was a little worried when we were watching it and I was like, there's a lot about this that is problematic. And I felt like maybe I was being too woke or something, but.
No, it's just not great.
Yeah.
It's just not good. And like, yeah.
I mean, I am glad I watched it, if only because it
now
is.
You can say you've watched it.
Now I can say I've watched it. It is a classic and there's a lot of references from it. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of, it was what it was.
And that's all I have to say about that. I am Dan.
I'm Heather.
And thank you for listening to Blind Spots and Second Thoughts.